Hey friends, today we are going to tackle some fall maintenance here in our signature garden. It is now officially fall. We are rapidly approaching the end of September. October is knocking on the door. I just wish the North Carolina weather would catch up with the fact that it is fall. It is a nice cloudy day here in North Carolina, a zone 8A, but it's still quite toasty. But what we're going to do is we're gonna give the garden some love. The flower beds have been a little bit neglected here lately, and they just need some love. So what we're gonna do is just go through and focus primarily on the 4 flower beds that have shrubs and perennials. Those beds are the ones that need the most attention right now. Sorry for that interruption. Sweet Thing was giving me a little ring-a-ding. So we are going to focus on the perennials and the shrubs. I've always figured, my mentality is, if I'm doing it in my garden, odds are somebody else is going to need to be doing it in their garden. So we're going to walk you through on how to maintain what you need to be doing in your garden as now that we are officially in fall. We've talked about this a little bit before as far as, some things you can do in your garden. One of the number one things is keep up with the weeds. We have obviously not done a very good job here in the last month keeping up with the weeds, and they're everywhere. So we're going to take care of that. The grass is a little wild and woolly, which is a good thing because remember, this is the fresh sod that we laid down. So it is growing and it is happy. Chandler typically comes on a Monday or a Tuesday to mow, so I'm not worried about this. Plus, I can get here in the garden and, quote, make a mess, and then he comes back through and mows the grass and it all looks beautiful. But like I said, there's messes and successes everywhere, right? So we have a phlox here. This is the luminary opalescence. So you have one that's looking great. She still has some blooms on her. And then you have one right here that she looks like she's probably perished. So we'll cut her back, right? Next door, you have got the Perfecto Mundo. This is the pink carpet, and beautiful, sweet little double pink blooms on this. And this is actually, the double pink, I think. I don't think this is pink carpet. And yes, this is double pink. Lovely azalea. And so beautiful things are happening, but also there are some, some rough parts, and so we're going to take care of that. We are not going to touch the annuals today. We're going to leave those alone. They're still looking great. If I see a weed, I'll pull a weed, but we're not going to be focused and concerned about how the annuals are doing. We really are looking at the perennials and the shrubs. So like I said, weeds are probably one of my number one things that I need to get in here, and then we need to trim up and clean up, like my Tuscan Gold Heliopsis, like that just needs to be cleaned up. So I am going to take you along for the ride. I have got my furry sidekick here with me. So we're going to be in the garden together. Now, the tools that I am going to be using today, these are some great essential tools that if you don't have in your toolbox, then you're going to want to get. Also, the spider webs are quite prolific this time of year. I've walked through like 3 of them since we've been filming. You do that like invisible karate dance because you're trying to get the spider webs. So forgive me if I'm doing that. All right, my tools for today. We have got my nice thick kneeling pad because we're going to be kneeling on the ground a lot. I have got a container to put all of my debris in. We're going to do some light fertilizing. You can go ahead and fertilize your trees, shrubs, perennials in the fall. The general rule is you do it at half the rate that you would in the spring. We want to encourage and give nice food available for the root growth. So I'm just going to be using Plant Tone. I say Plant Tone is like the Swiss Army knife, and it'll take care of everything. So we do a little sprinkle of that. And then I do have with me also, as I 99% of the time do, I am wearing my garden belt that has my hori-hori, my Velcro's in there. All of my essential hand tools are right here with me. So without further ado, what we're gonna do is just set up the camera, and I'm just gonna take you through some of those main plants and show you in one of the flower beds. We'll take care of that. I'll walk you through on why I'm doing what I am doing, what we're gonna prune and what we're gonna leave alone. And yeah, just gonna be a nice, quiet morning here on a cloudy day. Praise the Lord, cloudy day here in the Signature Garden. right, my friends, so as a general rule, what I like to do is first, let's just get rid of the obnoxious weeds. So I went through this one flower bed and got rid of the weeds, at least that I could find. I am sure that I will find one or two more. Next, another general rule. Your perennials, you can feel free if you need to prune them, clean them up, even cut them all the way down to the ground. As a general rule, you are perfectly fine doing that with your perennials. For your shrubs, I like to, if a shrub needs to be pruned, then I like to do it coming out of winter and going into spring. All right, down. Brenna, down. Good girl. But if you're not sure, Google it, y'all. Or if you know it's a Proven Winners, go to the Proven Winners website and it will tell you when to prune it. So for example, over here, I've got like a Quickfire Fab. Quickfire Fab is a panicle hydrangea. It blooms on new growth. I want to prune it coming out of winter, going into spring. So for me, that's like around February. Think about Valentine's Day. But right beside of that, I have a Pillow Talk gardenia. Gardenias bloom on old growth. I don't want to prune her really at all. If I am going to prune her, it would be immediately after she blooms in the summertime. So shrubs can be a little iffy. However, your perennials, like I said, general rule, they are good. Now what I am gonna do is simply come in here and clean it up, what I call cleaning up the plant, taking off any of the old spent blooms. I'm gonna leave what is flowering because that is pretty, so we want to leave that. You do not have to be super precise, y'all, as far as where you're going to trim this, because as soon as I get a hard freeze, guess what's gonna happen? All this foliage is going to be killed and this plant is going to go, it's going to go away for the winter time, right? Your root system is still there and it's very happy and it's growing, but you're not going to have any foliage. I've got new growth on this opalescence, so that's very exciting. But if you want to come in here and make it neat and tidy, you certainly can do that just by pruning off the old blooms. You don't have to. It doesn't necessarily, quote, make the plant happier, but since this is a display garden, we want things to look neat and tidy, and right now they certainly do not look that way here with the perennials and the shrubs. So we're just going to take care of that really quickly. Good girl. Here I have the upscale red velvet monarda. And she's just looking a little wild. There are some ones that have some new growth on it, but I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this baby back and clean her up because it's just looking a little, she's just, like I said, a little wild and woolly. Do not have to be worried about being precise unless you've got some flowers on there that you're wanting to keep. Basically go in, grab a handful and cut. Monarda is great for attracting your pollinators. Beautiful bright colors. Obviously upscale red is going to have gorgeous red flowers, and the new varieties are not going to be quite as big and bullyish, shall we say, in the garden as some of the classic monardas. Much more controlled and are able to fit into smaller spaces. They come in a range of colors, they come in a range of sizes, but like I said, your pollinators absolutely love them. Found another weed. I told you I was going to. So we're just coming in here and tidying it up. Nothing aggressive, not cutting it all the way down to the ground, just giving it a nice little haircut and just making it look tidy. Hands down, without a doubt, my favorite perennial salvia is the Pink Profusion. It just does magnificently well here in our North Carolina Zone 8A garden. You can see there's just a couple of little sporadic blooms on it right now. I'll try to keep them, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to keep all of them. But just going in again and shaping up the plant. This perennial salvia, I have found, she just blooms so well and for a long time compared to other perennial salvias. honestly, I would prefer having the annual salvias, like the unplugs or the rockin' salvias, compared to these perennials, with the exception of Pink Profusion. She by far is the happiest and the most well-behaved, the healthiest salvia that I have. So all I'm doing is coming here and cleaning her up. Now, after she does her nice big spring flush, it really does benefit the plant to come in and give it a nice haircut. You can just gather up all those old blooms and just cut them back, and they do really well. They will continue to flush out again. You notice that, so the spring blooms, they're nice and upright and really tight habit. As the season has gone on, and just because, you know, we are in September, October's knocking on the door, she's a little splayed out. She's a little sad. So once the freeze comes again, come in, you come back and cut it to the ground. You might have, depending on your zone, you might have a little bit of some foliage throughout the summer, the winter rather. I tend to have, so I can be able to see like where it is. And yeah, so we're just cleaning her up, trying to keep some of those blooms on there because of course we still have pollinators that are enjoying them, and just getting them all neat and tidy up. My hydrangeas, I leave them alone until that you know, around that Valentine's Day mark. All of the ones that are here in the signature garden bloom on new growth. So they're either panicle hydrangeas or a smooth hydrangea. Those bloom on new growth, so you can safely trim them in that February, March area here, and you're guaranteed flowers because they bloom on new growth. So I will just leave them. I think this is probably Prime. She tends to be, in my opinion, one of the floppiest. So we'll see how she does after I prune her, like for next year. We'll see how she does. And if she still is a little bit floppy, then we might, you know, boot her and put something else in. But I'm just gonna keep going around to my perennials, getting them cleaned up, and then we'll go on to the next thing. All right, my friends, so we have weeded the bed, we have cleaned up the perennials, and we have looked at some of the shrubs to know whether do we prune them now, do we prune them later. Case in point, right here behind me, I have La Vida Mas Indian Hawthorn. Now this one's a kind of a new one for me this year. I've not had any experience with it growing until we put it here in the signature garden. I was thinking that it blooms on old growth, so I went to the Proven Winners website. I typed in La Vida Mas, I scrolled all the way down to the bottom, and it said blooms on, and this one actually blooms on both new growth and old growth. I scrolled a little bit more, and then it gave me some pruning tips. It says if you need to prune it, do it immediately after it does its spring blooms. That way you're not cutting off any flowers. So your spring blooms are going to be off of old growth. So those spring blooms are already set on the plant. So I don't want to prune it now. If I need to prune it, and this is only if I need to. This is going to be a short and wide evergreen shrub, and so if I needed to, let's say it starts to overcome this side of the bed, right? I didn't plan accordingly. We did, but just in case I didn't and I need to prune it, I want to do it immediately after it does its spring blooms. That way it will still bloom on new growth this, you know, that coming year. So that's an example of that. Now, two perennials that I am not touching, even though they may look a little rough, are my Amsonia. And I'm not going to touch my Amsonia because they give me great fall foliage. So if you know that a shrub or a perennial is going to give you some fall interest, just leave it alone. The Amsonias turn a beautiful like golden yellow color. So we're gonna leave them alone. Once the freeze comes and kills all that top foliage, you literally cut it to the ground and that is it. But we're gonna leave them alone. I have the String Theory, which is just right over here. She's stunning in the fall. So we're gonna leave her alone, and then I have Storm Cloud over here over my left shoulder. Now, the last thing that I need to do here today is continue to look for weeds, because I just found another one. And then we're gonna go ahead and do a light fertilizing on the beds. We use the Espoma fertilizers, right? They are great slow release fertilizers. I don't have to worry about burning my plants. Again, the main time that if you're only gonna fertilize once, is gonna be coming out of winter, going into spring. I think of it like a bear waking up from hibernation. Bears wake up, your plants are waking up from their winter slumber, and they're hungry. They want to grow. They want to fatten up, getting those roots all happy and get lots of foliage and lots of beautiful flowers. So we really feed them really well coming out of winter and going into spring. That's going to look differently for all of us on the calendar. Again, for me, that's going to be like end of February, March, even into April. That will be fine. There's grace in gardening. There's a grace in that window. This garden is new, right? We are just now approaching our 1-year anniversary. These plants have not even been in the ground for 1 year. I want them to have really strong, healthy root systems. So you can fertilize again in the fall, but at half the rate. The idea is we're not trying to get top growth, we're trying to get good root growth. So over the winter, we want that food, that slow release fertilizer, to be leaching down to the root systems so the root systems can get nice and strong and healthy. Another way to do that, besides using the fertilizer, is that we will come in once fall is finished, right? Once all the leaves have fallen, because we've got tons of hardwoods around here, the leaves have fallen, the perennials are asleep, I can trim them back and clean them up. We will come back through and top dress all 4 of these perennial shrub beds with a great quality of compost, whether that's Land and Sea or whether it's the Creekside blend that is compost and aged pine bark fines, but nice and thick. It helps reduce the weeds. If I had a thicker layer, some of it got washed away in the flood, then I wouldn't have nearly the number of weeds. But that is a great way between the fertilizer and the compost to feed these plants all winter long, so when they wake up in the spring, they're nice and happy and they're healthy and they're strong. Because remember, the first year they sleep. Essentially, they have slept this year. They're growing, but not very much. Next year, they're going to creep. They're going to have nice, new, like more significant growth, better flowers. And then the 3rd year is when they leap and they're very, very happy. Gardening teaches you patience. So what I'm going to do is get my plant tone, and I'm just going to shake just a little bit, broadcast it all over this bed. If you want to get specific, you could use holly tone for your gardenias, you could use rose tone for your hydrangeas, plant tone for everything else. Plant tone, I say, is the Swiss Army knife of fertilizers, so I'm just going to use plant tone on everybody. Some food is better than no food. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I've got 1 down, I've got 3 more beds to do. All right, my friends, so I have gotten half of the garden done. My goal today was to do all 4 beds. I've gotten 2 beds done, but Jerry has come home and we have got some work over at the terrace garden that we need to do before it begins raining. So we are expected to get several days of some good rain, nothing bad, just some good rain. And so we need to get that done before the rain begins. Another great thing is the reason that I timed what I'm doing here in the signature garden with the weather is, 1, it's cloudy, so yay for that. But 2, laying down the plant tone. If you've ever used the Espoma products, or the tone products as I call them, you know that they can be quite odorous and have quite a fragrance about them. It's the smell of success, right? Because that is the smell of happy plants that are going to be fed. But there is a strong odor, so if you can do it before it rains, then that certainly helps. If it's not going to rain, go ahead and get the hose out, turn your sprinklers on, whatever, water it in, and that certainly takes care of any of the fragrance that might be coming from the tone products. Also, this is a signature garden. This is a display garden, so I want to have that odor kind of gone before our customers and our guests arrive. Today's Monday, so they will be here on like Wednesday. Plan would be to come back tomorrow morning and I will finish up this project. But already just these 2 beds. Now you may not notice a huge difference, but I personally feel better about it because they have been cleaned up. The vast majority of the weeds are gone. Some weeds are more problematic than others, my friends. And is it perfect? No, it's not, y'all. It is end of September in North Carolina. These plants are tired. They have had a very long growing season, complete with heat, drought, floods, just a little bit of everything around here, and so they're tired. This is what a garden looks like in the end of September in North Carolina. So overall, again, could not be more pleased with this garden being less than a year old. It is doing great. Another thing that I am paying attention to as I am working in the garden is inevitably you're going to lose plants, y'all. If you garden long enough, which could be more than 5 minutes, you're going to lose some plants. Maybe it's your fault, the gardener's fault. Maybe you forgot to water it. Maybe you put it in a bad spot. Whatever it may be. It could just be it was the plant wasn't happy where it was, and the plant just was like, I'm done, I'm tired, I'm gone, and it just died. It could be environmental factors, right? You could have a flood come through, you could have hail, you could have drought. There's no telling what can happen. You're gonna lose plants. Just go ahead and accept that as a fact, and you will be much more prepared mentally for when you do lose a plant. I see it as an opportunity, right? So sometimes you'll lose a plant. Maybe I planted them in 3s and one of them died. Well, then maybe I just go and replace that one. Or maybe you had a whole shrub die. Well, then there's another chance to either plant that again or try something new. There's always opportunities to try things new in the garden. So if you lose a plant, it's just an opportunity to try again or try something new. Again, could not be happier with how everybody is doing. Brenda's trying to eat a bumblebee. That's not going to go well for her. And but the other 2 beds are these beds back here, and they're honestly probably one of the more worst ones. This one, bless its heart, is just covered in weeds. So I will be out here again tomorrow taking care of that for sure. But like I said, right now we have got some work we need to take care of at the terrace garden. So get out there, get in your garden, enjoy it. Even if you have a goal and you don't fully meet that goal, it's okay. There is grace in gardening. It applies to you and it applies to me. So my husband is here, and we're going to work on a project together, so I would rather be with him over there than over here by myself. So that, my friends, is what we're going to do. Y'all have an amazing day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.